cold sea. Let's get started before I say anything else stupid. Hello and welcome to another Warcraft the audio commentary. Today, guys, we're going to be watching game number 3 from the HFAS Cup, the Have Fun All-Stars Cup. This is game number 3. It's a best of 3 series. We watched the first 2 games yesterday, and they were both absolutely excellent games. I mean, absolutely fantastic games that are well worth watching. And if you did watch them, I think you'll be quite excited for game number 3, which we have found, and we're going to cast. Now, big ups to Elvin Star over at WC3replays.com, because that guy puts in the work. He gets all sorts of the replays. I don't even know how he finds all the replays, but he is a genius. And he's been doing that for years. He was doing it, he's been in, we were working together at tft.replayers.com back when I was an improver for Replayers. And that was in 2007, I want to say. And he had been there before, like at least a year longer than me. So, if not more than that, he's still doing it. He is the best. So I just wanted to shout him out. Anyways, let's introduce our players. We already know who they are, but let's introduce them. In the upper right part of the map, we have the red Night Elf playing in. It is Xixi. He's going with the Demon Hunter first play this time. Gonna go for the Ancient War creep. It's a standard kind of opening, kind of a standard way to play the Elf player. The map is obviously Secret Valley, and down in the lower left, we have the blue human spawning in. It's Yumiko. Yeah, he's going to go Archmage first and Footman. So we're definitely going to be looking for more of a standard type of game here. Both players have lost and won a singular game in the series. So I think they're both... I mean, we've seen some very interesting and I would say I don't know how non-standard it is from Xixi, the play he's played so far. But he hasn't played what you would definitively call standard. Up to this point, and is obviously going to get these wisps out on the map to get the nice bit of wisp spread. Does it after the second Moonwell goes down though. Doesn't want to mess up his wood early on. Probably a good thing. Both players creeping their orange null camp, so here comes a Footman in here just to get some scouting information off. Says, okay, okay, can I get a steal on the XP? Can I delay your creep? What can I do with this guy? Because really, the Footman in the early game, honestly, having one over at your opponent's base generally lets you do more with it than if it was just creeping. Because having an extra militia basically makes up for not having that Footman in your army. It's when you're creeping. It doesn't make a huge difference. Whereas you can actually do a decent amount of stuff when you bring it over here. For example, if you're harassing wisps or whatever, they have to pull an archer. These are things that they otherwise would like to not have to do. You brought it over here. It delayed the creep by a couple of seconds. A couple of seconds may not sound like a lot, but it can potentially be a lot. It could be the difference between getting a creep still on a creep timing, for example. So creep orders, if you go for a good creep order, that normally you can say, okay, well, if I could get there exactly at the time to get the last hit, well, if you got delayed a few seconds on your creep, then you actually would show up just a few seconds later. And that's actually something that does go on and does occur. I don't know how often and how standard it is that the timings are that precise. I think it tends to work out better like with that when you have orcs in the matchup. But nonetheless, it does work for any race. But here comes that Demon Hunter with the Archer. Going to go ahead and start trying to do some stuff. Gonna see a nice surround on the Demon Hunter, but he already has Immolation, so he's popping that out. He doesn't care. He's just like, I will tank all this damage. And really, Yumiko doesn't care to tank it either. And we're going to see the TP being popped out by the Demon Hunter. And the reason that I would say neither player is really too concerned about all that damage, because there are 2 health fountains on this map. And the Fountain of Health very, very close to this. The only issue is that those peasants can't really run over there. The Footmen, however, those can. But the other issue there is that, and yeah, he's gonna run him away because yeah, they need to either be building. So that is kind of a pain for him. But he is gonna be reinforcing with more militia, and these guys should be fine and safe down here in the safety of the human base. Have that Demon Hunter coming over here. He's going to pick up probably a Staff of Teleportation, I would assume. Maybe. Boots of Speed, definitely. Given. That's always a given. Not even going for the Staff. Doesn't care. He's like, I'm not going to get surrounded again. I'll make sure it doesn't happen. If you burn a TP, sometimes you'll see players, if they want to be absolutely safe, they'll pick up the Staff, but, you know, not this time. Demon Hunter running over here immediately to this Fountain of Health because he was probably hoping that there would have been a bunch of peasants over here healing up, but they're not there. So he's gonna have to come over here and potentially see if he can make something happen. But there's gonna be 1 Arcane Tower up. The Arcane Tower is not a big deal, but 2 Huntresses actually are we seeing double Ancient War hunts? I'm just kind of curious here. In fact, we're seeing this is a tier 1 hunt push coming out of Xixi. So he's definitely not playing standard once again, although hunts are effective. He knew that no matter what happened, he definitely delayed this expansion, so it's not a bad call. Even though he traded his TP, it's not a bad call to do that. He's going to delay this expansion even more, and now his question is, does he stay at tier 1 and just mass a bunch of Huntresses and try to end the game right here at this point? Because you can stay tier 1, it's not that big of a deal. Your opponent's going to be at tier 1, they're trying to go for an expansion play. So you're not losing out on tech here if you can keep canceling this expansion. It's not that big of a deal. The only issue is that he does have to consider that he is almost trading units here. He shouldn't be trading units. That Huntress could have easily not died. But you're basically trading, if you do lose units, and you are trading units, which is it's not the worst thing, because they lose resources because they're building, and they when they put it down, so there's resources being invested by the human player, so he's not just getting massively ahead here, even if he does kill a unit or something. Although then, you know, if there's a bunch of Huntresses, it becomes a lot easier to start canceling this, and then he can start fighting the footmen. Huntresses have a bit of an issue against level 3 water elementals, or level 3 archmages, because level 2 water elementals, they do a fair amount of piercing damage, and that kind of hurts the unarmored Huntresses there. As you can see, they take extra damage from the piercing attacks, but that's not a huge deal, especially if you micro them, which Xixi just is not going to do. He's not going to micro them. I don't know why he's not microing them, but he is not going to micro them. He doesn't care to tank the Arcane Tower with the Demon Hunter because it doesn't have any mana. He's not really concerned about mana. Mana burning would be nice, and he's going to get a couple mana burns off here and there, especially if he ends up in the position where he's coming back over here to heal. You know, he's going to regenerate quite a bit of mana, and he only has to get to 50 to actually do a mana burn. We're going to actually see Yumiko. He's going to just abandon the idea of putting up that expansion first. Went to put down a lumber mill, canceled it, and now he's going to build a couple more scout towers here. Presumably, he's going to get a lumber. Oh, he's already got a lumber mill up, so kind of confused why he was putting a second one there. Well, I'm not really, because worst case, you can have these peasants useful if they're building a lumber mill, and then they can start getting wood. That's worst case. But you don't really want it to be doing that if you can avoid it. And let's see the tech position. Yep, Xixi actually halfway through Tree of Ages, so he doesn't have a massive Huntress army here. He's not over committing to this. He's just trying to say, okay, you know what, you can't play greedy here. You have to build some defense. You have to be delayed. You're gonna have to do something about my early game army, and in this case, it's gonna be some towers. And that's kind of clever, because now if this had failed and that town hall had went up, then this would have been really bad for Xixi. But because it didn't, because he had the stronger army, because he was willing to basically have like a suicidal fixation on killing that expansion and keeping it down and preventing it from going up, he's managed, I think, to delay Yumiko enough that it's been well worth going for Huntresses, and I would say he definitely has the advantage right now in this game. And the other thing about this too is that we've seen this in the past few games. The elf player, his advantage is definitely something in the early game. If he goes with the Warden and the Demon Hunter play, then arguably it's in the late game as well. But definitely going to see a solid advantage right now in the early game, and that's something that a lot of times in the very standard versus very standard, where it's just the elf player fast stacking to get in there to their late game, the human taking that expansion, then fast stacking to get to their late game, it tends to look like the human player is at the advantage in that, because the point where the human's the weakest is right at the beginning. And that's really where a lot of humans find themselves saying they have the hardest time, is, you know, like, oh, in the first 5 minutes, you know, it's the hardest part of the game. And that's just because they're weak, because they're going for this very economy-based play. And that makes them very weak in the early game. They don't have a lot of units. Their units are very basic. They're footmen. The summons obviously help quite a bit, but in this case, summons aren't really doing a whole lot. And also, we're going to see this Archmage. He's just been running around the map being chased by this Demon Hunter, slowly losing life. Meanwhile, a couple of farms have been taken down at this base. That kind of hurts Yumiko a bit. Not terribly a lot, but it does hurt him. It means that at some point, Huntresses could just run in here and start wreaking havoc on those peasants, and that's a tower, basically, one tower. I mean, it's basically one tower. A guard tower and an arcane tower, it's not gonna do a lot to 600 HP Huntresses with 2 armor. It won't. It will kill them, but they can. If you have a couple down in there, they will easily get several peasants potentially without much of an issue. Just depends on how many you send, and you won't have much of an issue with that. And even if they die or they get low, they can go to the health fountains to heal up for free, basically, once it's nighttime. But AOW creeping the Panda. So again, Demon Hunter Panda. The Panda play I would say is really a good play. I think it's a good choice. It gives you AoE, it lets you take down towers, it lets you take down buildings, it lets you take down flying machines, it lets you take down tanks fairly somewhat reasonably. So it's a really powerful thing, but I think the main reason that they get it is because in the main standard composition, you have those casters and you have those mortar teams in the back, they tend to clump up, and that makes them a very prime target for Breath of Fire, that makes them a very prime target, obviously, for Drunken Haze as well. This is going to be a kind of an interesting thing. I think Yumiko would like to creep this Red Drake, but we're just seeing this Demon Hunter being used incredibly effectively, and he's saying, you know, you're not really going to get to do anything right now. I'm just going to creep my Panda, and I'm just going to say, you know, because one, you have still played this fairly greedy, you still haven't really made much in the way of units, you can't really stop me. I can just sit there and do whatever I want with my Demon Hunter, and you just kind of have to deal with it, because your units, your army is getting smaller and smaller every engagement, and I'm just getting stronger and stronger every engagement. But Tree of Life going up right now, it's already built. In fact, it's walking over here to this gold mine. There is no Nature's Blessing being researched just yet. I don't know if he's going to get 4. He's gone straight on to Tier 3. Double Ancient Allure. It's very close to Tier 3 at this point. Yumiko is moving out very close to this Tree of Life. If he's going to go down, it looks like he's going to go down to it, and that's going to force the xixi to come back and defend it, although he's already got 2 Dryads down there, so he's actually just going to end up in a fairly decent spot, potentially even going to force this Archmage to staff out, depending on how this gets microed here. Could have blocked it with the Dryad, but it's fine. Does not make a massive difference at all. Archmage just kind of running around. The question at this point is, what is xixi trying to accomplish? One, he's trying to get this Ancient War over here so he can easily creep out this without losing much of his army, without losing a lot of life, and make it fairly safe and risk-free to creep. 2, he would probably like to creep the greens if he has the time. You know, he doesn't have the time right now because he's chasing Yumiko around the map, but the greens are something that you probably would like to see him creep. It's gold, it's items. Well, I think it's mostly tomes, but it's just nice to do it, and also more importantly, stops the human player from creeping out their hero later on. Because if we look at the creep map for a second, we can see that on the left side of the map right now there is this camp, which we're definitely going to be seeing creeped out by xixi, and then there's this orange camp, which is really just a dragon at this point, and then there's a red up here, and then there's a red down here, and that's pretty much all that really Yumiko is going to have access to for creeping up another hero, unless he can gain map advantage, or map control advantage rather, which he's unlikely to be able to do. At least for a while, and that's going to give plenty of time for xixi to creep up even more and become even stronger. So we're definitely going to see the hero level advantage go over to the elf player here, and he's basically already secured that. I mean, this is well into the elf player's territory, so creeping that out is probably going to go to the elf if he decides to creep that. And then the reds are the kind of thing that the reds are the kind of thing that the human would like to creep out and put some towers up here to defend, but it's kind of a difficult position to do that in, and obviously there's water everywhere. So the elf player, he's had a very strong early game this entire time, and he's also he's probably going to have a pretty good late game. The standard army compositions do not really favor Yumiko that much on this map, because there's not really a lot of places that he can just stick down some towers to create artificial choke points, and there's not really a lot of natural choke points that he can actually end up basically using and abusing. And the choke points that there are there, it's going to be difficult for him to reinforce with towers, which I would definitely say are an integral part. This Mountain King actually in a terrible spot. Does he have invisibility? He does not have invisibility. That's just going to die. It maybe looked like he could get through there, but in fact he cannot. So the Mountain King just drops. That's really unfortunate for Yumiko. And this game is just taking more and more turns worse for Yumiko. He's definitely in a hold-up position here. He does not have a lot of options. But he's not out of the game yet. He's definitely not out. He does have the 2 bases up. That is what he needs in order to produce his army. He's got the triple Arcane Sanctum coming up right now. He's got the workshop. He's got a blacksmith. He's been using that for upgrades. I don't know why yeah. I guess he has enough resources at this point. He may as well just double Q. And he does have a Mountain King even though he lost it. Now he's not Castle Tech, he's stuck on Keep Tech, and he probably won't upgrade for a while because he doesn't have a lot of wood. As you can see, this is down at 70 wood. Getting Flare. Flare is always wonderful. I think Flare is probably more important on this map than any other map so far, because Yumiko needs to know exactly where that elf player is before he can go for any kind of engagements. I mean, look, you can kind of just see, like, the choke points are not small. Potentially the best position that Yumiko could hope to get is near this tavern, which I don't think he's gonna. Because here at least he can put up some towers and then fight, and it'll be pretty well regarded. But that's not. And it's not really a great defendable position. And even if you do take it over, you're gaining control of the tavern. It's not a gold mine, right? This is an issue. Now, this is obviously a point where we're going to see the wisp here. This is incredibly important because normally you can try to build some towers up here, but if you try to get the towers where you want them, you risk waking up the creeps, and so that makes it a little bit more difficult. So this has to be crept out really realistically before the human player can start to secure this position for a gold mine and a choke point type of thing. But what he can't do is he can't really do that without alerting the elf player if there's a scout right there. And someone just said I always mention choke points. I do mention choke points because in elf versus human, where they're playing these strategies, choke points are incredibly important. They absolutely are, and it's basically the thing that the human players end up playing around more than anything else. It's the one thing that they really have to play around because they tend to lose the fights that are in the open ground because otherwise there's nothing really. There has to be something stopping the panda from going back to those casters and those mortar teams. There has to be something that prevents those dryads just from running around in a circle and they're just dodging every single mortar fire and just going straight for the mortar teams themselves. There has to be something that's actually stopping that. There has to be something that's funneling those bears in so they're not just like making a huge concave and basically attacking very efficiently. There has to be those things, and the only thing they're really going to see from that is choke points, whether they're artificial or natural. And so that's why I talk about them. So I may sound like a broken record, but they are very important. So sorry. Anyway, so yeah, I will try to switch up to a little bit more just to talk about the rest of this match that we are seeing. Mountain King at level 1, he has Boots of Speed as well as Potion of Lesser Invulnerability. Archmage at level 3, passing one of those healing scrolls over to the Mountain King, having 2 now. So healing scrolls are obviously incredibly important as well because you got to keep everything up. At level 3 on the Panda, basically, or level 3 or level 4, he has level 2 Breath of Fire. You can get 2 Breaths of Fire off before you have to use a healing scroll on those casters. This is going to be a fight that we're going to see getting engaged right now. There's a healing scroll on the Panda. Also an anti-magic shell potion on the Demon Hunter. He's going to go ahead and pop that just to kind of make sure he can put out a lot of early game pressure without having to worry too much about bolts. That Panda's trying to get around to the back to get to these casters and the mortar teams. We're going to see these Huntresses also getting right into that line. The Demon Hunter's on his way back as well. We're going to see the human player popping a potion. A scroll of healing from the Archmage. The Mountain King also in a position where he wants to stay back here around these guys because he has the other scroll of healing and he needs to keep these things alive. There's immolation being used right now because the immolation is affecting everything. It's kind of AoE in some sense, so he may as well go ahead and use it. The Demon Hunter's getting kind of low, but he does have a potion of lesser invulnerability. He's going to go ahead and pop that. We're going to go ahead and see the Huntress right there taking a lot of bit of focus, and the Panda right now is in a decent spot as well, but he is kind of getting low. He has a scroll of Town Portal. He might end up having to use it. He's going to go ahead and use it, and the Mountain King over here level 2 now picked it up, but he did have to pop a potion of lesser invulnerability himself. Demon Hunter's going to get out of there as well, and everything on the Elf army is pretty low, but it's not so low that he can't heal up, and heal up fairly effectively if he wants to. He has his choice. He can go to a healing fountain. He can also use rejuvenations. It is daytime, so his Moonwell juice that he just spent is basically not going to come back anytime soon. But there you go. Human actually just won. Yeah, Human won the fight. He definitely won the fight. And now we're going to see these towers going up. And what Yumiko is going to want to try to do is defend this position, because if he defends this, he gets a gold mine. And having a second gold mine would bring him up to 3 gold mines. And he definitively is going to need to be up to 3 gold mines on this map if he wants to win. There's just not really going to be any kind of, because even though that fight was kind of the elf player forced out, the elf player didn't lose a lot. He really didn't lose very much. And I would say Yumiko, I don't know. It's hard to say who spent more, but Yumiko, I mean, just look at his hero levels. He's level 3.5 on the Archmage. He's level 2 on the Mountain King. Taking fights, even if the elf player is trading inefficiently right now, he's going to get closer and closer to level 6 on the Demon Hunter. He's going to get closer and closer to level 5 on that Panda, and those are big deals for him against these types of armies. So the elf player, he's down here. I'm sorry, the human player was down here trying to reinforce that position. The elf player says, you know what? This is not a base that is going to be difficult for you or for me to assault. And it's going to be quite difficult for you to defend it if you're down there, and you can't defend both this position and that, so I'm going to assault the base instead. And the human player, Yumiko, says, you know what, that's fine. What I'll do is I'll just go for your expansion as well. He's got Nature's Blessing being researched. It's not going to quite finish, and all of this stuff down here is actually going to die. Quite an interesting decision for Xixi to just go ahead and suicide this, and give up all of this for it. I mean, that is... That is quite a lot to give up right now. It's, I think, at least 7 wisps right there that he's not detonating. He just does. Xixi, I think that is the one thing that drives me crazy. He just never detonates his wisps in those positions. I guess there's a reason. There has to be a reason. I guess the only thing I can come up with, the only explanation I could possibly imagine is that he says, well, it takes more time for you to kill those wisps than for me to detonate them, and it's a meager amount of XP, and your hero XP is not really going to get out of hand anywhere before mine does. So I'll let you do that and spend as much time as you want killing those things while I kill your base. And okay, maybe, but still, in this case, you know, look, he's still finished first. And even if he didn't finish first, I mean, the town hall went down. Look, I think he should have just detonated, but that's just my opinion. I don't know. Over here, though, this is now becoming more important because now that Yumiko has 1 gold mine, it's got 500 gold left in it, and of course for Xixi, that's also a very similar situation. He's got 400 gold left in his gold mine. He's getting the Nature's Blessing research once again. He needs to have it. He definitely needs to have it. And here comes the human player coming in to assault the main player, the main base of the elf player. It's been nighttime for a bit, so there is a Moonwell juice that's been regenerated. So this is going to be a kind of a position here. Also, there is a town portal on the panda, but he's not going to use it. He's just going to say, you know, I'm going to run across the map. I'm not too far away. And I'm going to try to just take the losses that I have and just deal with it. Yumiko, though, he's going to really entrench himself before he goes ahead and TPs out and says, you know what, I'm just going to delay as long as possible because I need this to get put up. And not only do I need this to go up, I really want you to be as close into your base as possible so that if you do start to leave, I can kind of put myself in a superior position so that if you try to take this, I'll take your main base. And that is a pretty smart thing for Yumiko to do. But Xixi's not going to go for that. He's just going to come up here. He's going to say, I'm going to creep out this red. I can potentially put this into an expansion. And this is kind of a good idea. And also, it's another good reason that he went ahead and sacked this base. And the reason that I think it's kind of nice that he sacked this base is because it would be quite difficult, okay, for Xixi to take this base and this base when Yumiko has this base down here. Because Yumiko can easily split up his army, and he can definitely drag the elf player into multiple locations. And this is a position that Yumiko is going to have a great interest in defending, so he can fight right here, and he can fight. This is a pretty okay position for Yumiko to fight. It's one of the better ones on the map, so he would definitely have no problems fighting there. And sorry, someone's asking me about the bottom right part of the map. I don't see anything on the bottom right part of the map. Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I don't know. What was I saying? Something. Let me just go back to what I was saying. What's it called? My train of thought just completely left me. But let's just go ahead and move on. Mountain King at level 2. He's got 2 scrolls of healings. He's got a potion of lesser invulnerability. He does have boots. He's sitting in invisibility, which is cast by those lovely sorceresses down here. Compliments. And the Archmage getting kind of close to level 3 or level 4 rather, and 3 scrolls of healing. Absolutely fantastic control of these shops, and obviously the elf player wants scrolls of healing as well. He's only got 1. He has it on his panda, not on his demon hunter. He's got a potion of lesser invulnerability though on the demon hunter. He also has the Khadgar's pipe of insight. That is a really, really good item for him to have, because something we constantly talk about is that the sustain of the elf player is really screwed over by these spellbreakers because they screw over the mana regeneration. When you have a Khadgar's pipe of insight, it's like having a level 1 brilliance aura on all those bears. That's literally what it's literally level 1 brilliance aura. Which means you have a whole lot of mana to work with on not only your bears, but also on those dryads. So we're going to see more roars, we're going to see more rejuvenates, we're going to see more abolishes, and that's going to mean that, I don't know if Yumiko has transitioned yet, but he's going to have to get out. He doesn't have a choice. He cannot use water elementals at this point. It simply would not work, because they would just get instantly abolished, and it would feed a lot of XP over to those heroes, because it's going to give about 20 roughly XP to both of those heroes, every single water elemental. And if there's only one there, then it's going to give about 42, 44, 48, whatever. I think it's going to be 44, so 40, so 22? Yeah, so 22 to each. Yeah, so this is quite a position. I mean, he still has the water elementals, but it's not going to... When you're playing up against the Khadgar's Pipe of Insight with this many Dryads, and you have a couple of Fairy Dragons, and you have some Bears, but look at this over here. So we saw this earlier, and I didn't mention it, but there's a Tree of Life that's been going up. So Xixi, back to the map control thing, right? What Yumiko, or what xixi effectively did when he traded out this base, he said, okay, you're gonna be down here. I'm gonna have you locked into this position on the map, just this little bitty area, and I'm gonna take the furthest base away from you that I can. This is very far away from Yumiko. It's gonna be very difficult for Yumiko to defend and attack that, because you'd have to be in 2 places at the map at one time. And even though human player, I would say, has the better ability to split their army up and use it effectively like that, I still don't think that they could, because of the threat of attack is so big, and because of the fact that this is not a map that they can really deal with not having their whole army, this is a harder position, because xixi could just send units into that. He could send water elementals in there to harass. He could send, he could send a mortar team or something. That would be difficult to defend, but this is easy to defend, because we can just see xixi just playing really aggressively, keeping Yumiko right here. And not only that, he's got the option to take this base now as well, which is, again, for the same reason that this base is secure. It's pretty much the same reason this one is secure. Yumiko's not trying to defend this position. This he doesn't care that much about. This is what he cares about. This has the super choke point. This is the thing that he can back up into if he needs to. Here, he's just going to end up back here, and that's not going to particularly help him. And yeah, I mean, so at this point, it looks like it's just a matter of time before, I don't know. This hasn't really kicked in yet. I mean, it's not paid for itself yet. So if Yumiko decides to take a fight here soon, I mean, he's going to have to decide, does he want to move out? Does he want to, maybe he's going to have to defend his main base. Maybe that's how it's going to have to go down.
A town is under siege.
Yeah, looks like that's what he's going to have to do. But look, I mean, the Panda, just the breath of fire here, which he has an endless amount, basically, because he has that Khadgar's Pipe of Insight. And he's got a circlet as well, which also helps his mana regeneration. And I mean, look at this. This will actually lose all of those towers, all of those farms, fairly soon. Just if this keeps up at this rate. And so it's just a question of what are we going to see Yumiko do? He's playing Invis Morts here, actually. Okay, fair enough. He's going to split his army up, and he's going to try to do something very sneaky. He's got 2, 4, 6, 7 mortar teams with 1 attack upgrade. He's moving across the map. Okay, he's going to move back down as xixi starts through casting. I believe that's xixi reveal. Maybe not. No, it's not. What am I saying? It's obviously an arcane tower. I don't even know what I'm saying. Yeah, so that's an arcane tower. He's just getting revealed. Just say, okay, well, this is where the elf army is. And again, he could have moved those mortar teams out, I guess. I don't know what he's trying to do with them. Maybe he's trying to convince the elf player to engage. He's like, I'm not going to have my army here. But nope, that's not what's going to happen. He's just keeping it there. Or maybe that's what happened. I don't know. That Dryad could easily die, and it does. Level 4 now being picked up by the Archmage. The Footman right here taking some damage in the front. You're gonna see a bolt off on the Demon Hunter. This is one of those positions where the human player is so far behind on XP. He's playing versus 5-5 with 4-2. I mean, that is an insane gap in XP right now. This is gonna be really difficult. We see 3-2 on these upgrades for the elf player units. 1-0. And 0-1 upgrades for Yumiko. Yumiko is way upgraded here. He's way out leveled, and this is a terrible position for Yumiko. He's trying to do something, but his units are just all kind of messed up. The spellbreakers weren't all in front. The casters and morts were kind of mixed in between. He lost quite a bit. And if we look at this, he's sitting at 75 out of 84 food. Once he got the TP off, she said, okay, well, I will back up. I will regroup myself. Got these Dryads down here that I'm going to be using because your mortar teams are kind of all out of position as well. Gonna see one of those potentially going down. Yeah, and now we're gonna see Yumiko getting a little bit aggressive. He says, okay, well, I got my confidence back. You know, I got that TP. I got my army in a good position here. Now you're out of position. Let's go for it. Let's see what I can make happen here. And xixi's just moved up here. He's not even rejuvenating his bears. He could potentially do that. He's not really worried about it. He's just backed all the way out. This could be a master plan by xixi to get the human player out of that choke point, to get him out here, and to maybe take a big and good engagement kind of in the open part of the map. But Yumiko's going to use this time to get over here to the shops, and he's going to say, buy another healing scroll. Now he's got 4. Why not? Why not? And this is a potentially bad spot for those mortar teams? I don't know. Oh, we got some Hippogriff and Flying Machine action. Didn't really happen there, but yeah. Orb of Venom on the Demon Hunter. Those Flying Machines are going to go down. This is a position that is really, I mean, Yumiko's gonna try to make the best of it with that choke point there. But here comes xixi going in for it. He doesn't care. He's like, look, this is still not that great of a position for you. My Panda can still get in. I've got 2 scrolls of healing on the Panda. I've got 1 scroll of healing on the Demon Hunter. I've got a lot of sustain in this fight. Even though Yumiko does have those 4 scrolls of healing, we're gonna see him already popping a potion of lesser invulnerability and a healing scroll. So here we're gonna go ahead and start seeing this fight happen. But this is just a terrible position. Yumiko can't take this kind of a fight. Does he have a TP scroll on either one of his heroes? He does. The Mountain King's going to TP out, and in fact, he's just going to call a good game because he knows at this point that he's completely outmined on the map. He can't really take the fights. All he can do is play defensively, and if all you can do is play defensively and you only have 1 base and your opponent has 2 bases, you're pretty much out of luck. So xixi just played really brilliantly there from the beginning of the game to the end. You know, he started with that very strong hunt aggression. He said, you can't play greedy against me, Yumiko. You can't play greedy. And then the mid game, he just crept really impressively, and he had that Demon Hunter just on that army non-stop. He said, well, you can't creep, and I'm creeping. You can't creep, and I'm creeping. And he said, I'm going to be all nice and greedy in the mid game. And then in the late game, Yumiko was just so far behind. And then we saw some really excellent smorg play out of xixi, where he just said, you know what, I'm going to trade this base out for your base, because if I go defend that, I'll be on 3 bases, or I'll be on 2 bases versus 3. And if I don't go and defend this, and you lose this, then I'm going to be in an even better position than otherwise, because I'll just take the expansions that are across the map, because I know you can't really fight me out on the open map. So that was game number 3 for this wonderful best of 3, ending in a wonderful result. So congratulations to xixi for that. So that's that series. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and we're going to go to break for just a couple of minutes, and we'll see you back live right after it. So stay tuned.